Hello, hello. Welcome to this week's episode of A Soundtrack of Your Life. I know it's been a while, but hey, life takes over and we're all here now. If you're new to the show, then this is the place where you get to share your stories about how music, whether that's songs, bands, albums, theme tunes, soundtracks, whatever you'd like, has interspersed with moments, people, times, scenario, events in your life going on. Because we've all got stories when it comes to that kind of thing, so this is exactly the place to share them. My guest on this week's show is the brilliant Suzanna Storey. Suzanna is an integrative psychotherapist and hypnotherapist who helps people with things like racial trauma and intergenerational trauma that's been through in their life. But when she's not doing that, she takes on the role and persona of Saffron, which is her music artist persona. That has led to Suzanna making things like her own album, her own video, her own label, and led to a catalogue and output that's reached beyond 50 million views and streams. 50 million, that's fucking mental. What follows is an brilliant, engaging conversation where we hear about how Suzanna tried to juggle both sides of her life, essentially, her music and a professional space, how she made the idea for her upcoming video, which is going to be awesome, by the way, and much more besides. As always, it's going to be a really great show. I hope you're going to enjoy. No, in fact, you are going to enjoy watching and listening to it. And if you'd like to be on the show, just check out the link wherever you're watching this from to get in touch with me, and then we'll speak about you coming onto the show as well. So sit back, enjoy the show, and feel supersonic. Welcome to this new episode of Soundtrack of Your Life. I know it's been a while, fair play. I should have got my arse in gear to get more of these out, but hey, we're all busy in life, takes us in different directions. But here we back are with a great episode, and I'm really excited about this one because I've got the lovely Suzanna Storey with me this week. And Suzanna, in her professional space, is an integrative psychotherapist and hypnotherapist. And she's helped all ranges of people with things like racial trauma, emotional trauma, that kind of thing. But when she's not doing integrative psychotherapy with people, she's also known as Saffron in the music space. And there's so much going on at the moment. Before we started, we even just caught up saying it's been crazy. So there's going to be all manner of stories and directions that I'm sure Suzanna will be more than willing to share with us. So Suzanne, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
No problem. So like as I say, in the promo before the show, I mentioned that we met on a panel talking
Yes.
about the South Asian identity and where we're headed with it and that kind of thing. But on top of that, we also talked and saw about your music business experience and stuff like that, and also mentioning that like making a mark from maybe a South Asian background or trying to understand where that fits in against the non typical background of like you just got to do the safe education, the safe career versus I want to do something more artistic and stuff like that. So yours seems a very storied journey in that regard.
Yes, I tried the typical Asian thing because I actually did go to law school for a year. So to
Oh
become
right.
a lawyer, because my dad really wanted me to become a lawyer. But I was so miserable that year. I just knew I'm just not wired to be a lawyer. So I
Yeah.
actually quit law school, took a gap year, where I worked, got to travel a little bit and figure things out a little bit. Ended up going back to university and doing a degree in English and Film and TV Studies.
Okay.
And then got an opportunity to go and kind of travel, work in LA for a bit. Came back to the UK to renew my visa, met my now husband, and now I'm in Northampton. So it's been a wild old journey. But my husband's a musician, and so we did a lot of writing together. So it's kind of how I kind of fell back into music, and into the creative sector. But it wasn't always, I wasn't always doing both of these things. So, you know, I think early on, I really loved film. Actually, the first thing I wanted to do was become an actress. I really wanted to go into acting.
All right.
But my dad would say to me, no, you're the ugly duckling, you're the darkie of the family. Like, if your younger sister who's got fairer skin wants to do it, then maybe she'll make it because she's fair and lovely, but you're like the ugly duckling. That's what my dad used to call me.
Ah.
I know. So I didn't really pursue the acting stuff, which is, you know, kind of a regret I have, I suppose, that I listened to him, because obviously, as we know, they don't always know what's best. But you know, I think for me, I kind of sidestepped it. So I thought, well, what's acting adjacent? So I started writing, and I started writing scripts, and I started writing songs, and I thought, well, this feels like it's close enough to acting. It's like acting adjacent. But then when I started writing music, so actually the first project I ever worked on was a musical film. And it was the storytelling aspect, bringing music into it. I just fell in love with writing music. I found it so freeing. I found my creativity was able to really flourish in that realm, because I could say all the things that I couldn't say in real life, but I could put it in music, and then no one cared. So I kind of fell into music that way. Came back to the UK, met my husband. We ended up doing a couple of stuff, bits and pieces together. He ended up producing the soundtrack to the musical I wrote, and yeah, and then we kind of got married, and then a couple of years later I got pregnant, and then I had my first child, and I thought, well, that's it now, that's my artistic career over. So I put Saffron to bed, she died. And I didn't think anything of it until 2020, when in lockdown we were like, we had so much time now, so we started writing music and just pitching it to different DJs across Europe. And one of the DJs came back to, so what would happen typically is you write a top line. So a top line is like a verse, chorus, verse, basically. You send them a demo track, so either I would sing it or my husband would sing on it. And then usually what happens is they take the track, they get a different artist to re-record it, and then you get your songwriting credits, and off it goes into the world, right? But this particular track, which was a track called Walk Through Shadows, I sang the top line, and the label came back and they're like, we want these vocals. Who are these vocals? And by that point, I'd already had a complete career change. I'd gone into training. I was trained to become a psychotherapist. I'd already started my private practice, and I had my website, it was branded as Suzanna Storey. And I was just like, huh? No, you don't want these vocals. You know, and really tried to discourage them from taking these vocals.
Right.
And they were like, no, we want these vocals. We want these vocals. So I resurrected Saffron, because I was just like, I don't want to merge the two brands, because it felt really natural for me to keep them separate. Suzanna Storey, the psychotherapist, and then Saffron, the artist. Also, it really helped me with thinking about what I needed to post on socials. So Saffron's very artistic driven, whereas my Suzanna Storey therapy page is very like therapy driven. And I needed that separation. So basically Saffron was resurrected. And then when that song came out, I just had loads of DJs kind of slipping into the DMs being like, oh, can you write us a top line? Can you write us a top line? And then started just getting more opportunities to initially top line for other DJs. So singing tracks on trance and dance songs. And in that kind of process, fell in love with music again. And I'd gone through quite a lot of different racial trauma experiences in the workplace, in particularly. And you know, growing up in the UK has been somewhat of a dichotomy for me, like trying to figure out my identity. And then I decided, right, I'm going to do some research. So I did my further qualifications, and I did my research paper on the experience of being a second generation immigrant, child of first generation immigrants. So what does it mean to confront identity and psychotherapy and trauma through the lens of a second generation immigrant? That's what I did my research. And in that, I decided to do something called an autoethnography, which is basically a research study of your own experience, but looking at a purely academic point of view. And so in that, I started writing a lot, and I started writing music specifically with the outlet of using it as part of my trauma therapy. And
Right.
thus, the Identity Crisis album was born.
Wow.
So, yeah, that's kind of how Identity Crisis, the album, came about. It was meant to be um, journal entries, which are a journalistic approach to adding segments into my research. And it ended
Wow.
up,
So you've combined research with your own experience and written it to music.
yes.
In the same way
So,
that, much of music says a lot about the artist writing it, right? They say that, like, these reflect my experiences, but you've actually gone it, like, this is actually for research purposes too.
yeah,
Wow.
absolutely. So when I was writing the pieces, it
Mm.
felt very much like doing some inner, so some of them are odes to my inner child, if you like, or some of
Right.
them are efforts to explore the inner child experience. Some of it is like reparenting, going back to that inner child and saying, hey, I see you, here's your platform, say what you've got to say. Because growing up, I think number one, being female, I think number two,
Mm.
growing up with immigrant parents, number three, being a brown person in the UK, right? There were so many socio kind of economic conditions that were put on us because my
Mm.
parents were working class. So it was like there wasn't room to speak. And as a female, you weren't given permission to speak, right? I grew up in a culture, it was very much like women should be seen and not heard,
Mm.
and much like children. And I think part of that was very crippling for me. So I internalized a lot of things as a child. And what the album gave me was an opportunity to explore all the facets of that. So all the things
Mm.
I should have been doing in my teenage years, being rebellious and being, exploring oneself, kind of got put on pause because I had to internalize everything as a survival mechanism. And so what the research did was, number one, brought everything to the surface. And number two, forced me into a position where I had to confront it. Not only because I was studying it, because I was actually feeling it, and I think that was very much a byproduct of 2020 and lockdown, where there
Mm.
was almost like this huge global shift in the way that we did life, and so much of those early stages where you couldn't leave the house or you were scared to leave the house because no one knew what was going on. It forced you to confront your own thought processes and your own internalized misogyny, colonialism, you name it. I was beginning to review all of these things and internalize racism. And then the stuff with George Floyd was a huge trigger for me because
Mm.
what I realized was that my experience of racism, which I had internalized as a coping mechanism, wasn't isolated to just me. There were tens of thousands and millions of people across the globe who felt that viscerally. And I think what the conversation that happened after, like post George Floyd, gave language for our experiences. So that was probably the first time I'd heard of gaslighting. You know,
Mm.
that was the
Mm.
first time I'd heard of like microaggressions, the term microaggressions. The term white fragility, or white superiority. Like all of these conversations started to happen and give language. So we knew about it. I felt something, there was a disconnect, there was a difference. But getting language for it forces you to confront it
Well,
because
also, I
you don't
guess
have
that
anything.
like almost validation, or the confirmation that you're not the only one experiencing or seeing this. As you said, like,
Yeah.
when these wide experiences come to the fore, it does trigger conversation, awareness, discussion, and also you kind of see where things are at the moment. It feels like we're going through something similar at the moment here in the UK, in particular, where
Yeah.
there's all sorts of discussion on what, and maybe a movement today towards politicizing all of these things,
Yeah.
because it's certain wings of the political spectrum, where it's the right wing, the left wing, the whatever it is. But
Yeah.
fundamentally, you're talking about ideas that have been in, maybe felt like an undercurrent for years, but are just conveniently put as an excuse. So if we have an immigration problem, it's everybody that comes into the country, no discrimination or anything made in that regard. It's like, right,
Yeah.
anyone that's not typically here or from here is part of the problem.
Yeah.
And then when you see that, you're like, shit, this is not a new thing. This has been here for years and years. So yeah, as you said, when these big, wider experiences come off, you're like, oh, hang on. As you said, it gives you language. It gives you that platform.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I think part of the journey of figuring out my identity has been navigating all these nuances, because I think all the stuff that's going on with the race riots and, setting fire to asylum seekers' hotels and all the stuff that we're seeing really viscerally is scary because there's such a lack of education around the reality of what's being faced. And because of social media, people have access to information, but they also have access to misinformation.
Yeah.
And if it feeds their worldview and if it helps them feel better about their circumstances, they'll latch onto it, even if it's not true. And that's a really, really scary thing to witness when you are on this journey of authenticity. Because actually, sometimes that can be really confronting, the fact that you're on this journey of authenticity, and yet, Trump is a perfect example of he can just make shit up. Sorry, excuse my language. Make stuff up.
Good.
And he takes that as gospel, like autism is caused by Tylenol, for example, which is absolute ludicrousy, right?
I think we need a whole episode for his ideas and things.
And yet there's also this huge shift where actually there's this real drive for authenticity, where these social structures that have been in place for decades are no longer serving us. We're getting more and more people being diagnosed with neurodivergence. Why? Because the systems of the neurotypical systems are no longer serving us. And so they're getting the diagnosis to try and survive the systems instead of adjusting the systems, right? And that's on the rise. And people are, you've got certain people thinking that they're poo-pooing it, basically saying like it's utter ridiculousness. It's just, people being snowflakes is a term that's been bandied around. Whereas actually it's not. People are now giving themselves permission to unmask. And the reason why we haven't seen it before is because so many of us were taught to mask, and I think these are all remnants of colonialism. And this is all stuff that I delve into in my research, which is like when you begin to deconstruct colonialism and you start to cipher through the constructs that we have all lived under and been socially conditioned under, and you start to thrive for authenticity. Number one, you start to feel happier, right? Number two, it can sometimes be really lonely because certain friendships relied on you wearing the mask. And when you no longer mask, that it causes like a disruption in the matrix, if you like.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
And you can either lean into authenticity for your own sense of happiness and well-being, or continue to mask, and it's very confronting in those senses. But also there's this huge freedom of expression. I think people are able to be more creative now because there's access to resources, or people are creating their own resources. For me, I did do music full time for a period of time, and I was so miserable because I had to make every piece of art try and make money. And I would overthink the lyrics, being like, will this sell? Will this be palatable to an audience? And then it became more about the audience than it did about me using art as a vehicle to express my creativity. And I wrote some of the worst songs I've ever written in that period of time. I then thought, right, I need to make some money now. So let me do private practice full time and go headfirst into counselling, psychotherapy and hypnotherapy. And I was so miserable because it was just like emotional overwhelm doing that full time. And then I learned actually my sweet spot is having my private practice part-time, because it gives me this sense of like activating my intellectual brain and going on a journey with people. I really love connecting with people and helping them find their authenticity and be part of their healing journey. But also I needed this space for creative outlet. And part of what kind of gave me permission to do that was realizing the full phrase that had often been used as a stifling block that actually gave me freedom. And that was, you've probably heard the phrase, a jack of all trades is a master of none, right? But that's only half the phrase. The full phrase is, a jack of all trades is a master of none, but oftentimes better than a master of one. And when I heard that, it gave me freedom to be like, oh, I don't have to choose one lane. I don't have to do just one thing. And then later on in life, I found out that I was neurodivergent. I'm on the autistic spectrum. And it kind of like, it opened my eyes to be like, oh, this is why I don't fit into societal norms, because I think differently. So actually the way that I flourish isn't by doing one thing, it's by being able to intersect and do lots of different things. But to someone who's used to choosing one lane, they see that as chaotic, whereas I see that as fueling my creativity and the
Yeah.
ability to function at a much higher level and able to make all of these things run together. And so when I found that, I became so much happier as a person. So I just don't think I was built for the 9 to 5. It's just not me.
Well, it's really interesting that you say that. Like, there's so many more possibilities nowadays for people, whether it's the advance of technology or communication or all. There's much more possibilities that are available nowadays. Yet we're only starting to understand what that might mean for us as individually, because as you say, when we typically go through life, obviously depending on things like our environment, upbringing, etc., but
Yeah.
the stable model that we're seeing, and maybe more emphasized in like our cultures and backgrounds of, like, you know, do the safe degree, do the safe job, get a family as soon as possible, a partner as soon as possible, all the safe measures that say you're doing all right in life type thing.
Yeah.
And that if you've not got one of them things, you need a reason as to why.
Yeah.
And it's like you're on trial.
Yeah.
Yet, on the other hand, so many of us speak about this thing called a work-life balance, where you're going, I want to work because I've got bills to pay and mortgage to provide and kids to provide and stuff like that. But I don't want to just be in a 9 to 5 all day.
Yeah.
And yet, many people feel they can't get away from the 9 to 5 because of those obligations, and that is it.
Yeah.
They've got maybe the idea, the will, the passion, the interest, and all this kind of thing. So, one thing I heard the other day, a friend of mine I was talking to, so she's a dentist by profession, and enjoys the role, you know, what she does, and she's like, and I'm looking into things like offering implants, so she's like researching, doing qualifications towards that, and at the same time she's got real passion, interest in dance. So she does dance, she teaches dance, she does workshops here and there, and you know, she does it with a friend, and the traction they're getting at the moment is like they get invited to, say, weddings or events, and then, you know, they get spotted there saying, can you do an event that's coming up or whatever. And then I said, so do you think this would become like your longer term thing? He's like, well, I'm wary of making this into a business, because it's like, would I start to lose that natural enthusiasm or passion for it if I turn it into a business and a money making thing? I'm like, yeah, well, that's one possibility, where, you know, people say you don't want your passion or whatever to turn to a job, and at the same time there's space to see what that might look like. So as you said, you've carved out this space for yourself where, like, okay, part-time I do my therapy-based practices, and at the same time I give my creativity the outlet that it needs, and not just like well, I'll do it when I've got, you know, kids are settled, and like I'll do it, it's conditional based. But no, this is like, no, I've carved out time and energy specifically for it. And you know, that's maybe a question that people feel they can ask themselves, what does this look like? It's not to say, right, sod off your mortgages, your bills, your kids, this kind of thing. And at the same time, like, I feel when people talk about work-life balance, it's like all those things I used to enjoy and do and stuff like that, but I've suppressed. Like you said with, you know, when you went into the therapy thing full time, it's like, well, I've got to close down Saffron. But it's like, no, there's opportunity to see what that looks like for you, you know?
Yeah, definitely. And I think the journey towards finding what your balance is, all right, and I think balance looks different to different people.
Yeah, exactly.
Is one that you have to go on to figure out what works for you. I mean, I'm super lucky because I have a very supportive husband who backs me musically and literally writes stuff with me, you know. But he's also a software engineer by day, musician by night. So, you know, I'm really lucky because he's earning enough to cover all the bills, and he has said to me, like, no, Suzanna, this is your time, like, go pursue your artistry. So it gives me the opportunity to work part-time. And I appreciate that that's a really privileged position to be in. Like, not everyone necessarily has that opportunity. But what I will say is that find whatever schedule works for you. So if you are working full-time, dedicate one Saturday a month or Sunday a month, like, to creating whatever it is that is in your heart to create, right? Because the thing about creativity, it's not like someone else can come along and do what you do, because you're so unique. So if you don't create, it will be as if it never existed, right? And our creativity is a gift, not just to ourselves, but to the world. And I think as well, especially people from the South Asian community, we've been fed this rhetoric throughout the generations about getting a stable job or a real job. And what lockdown taught me is that there are no stable jobs.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, absolutely.
You know, and that actually what stability looks like to one person may be completely different to someone else. And I think it's about, well, find your stability. What helps you have that, you know? And going on that journey is really important. And it is a journey. It doesn't happen overnight, is what I will say.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, I didn't wake up one day and be like, right, this is it. I've got all my problems solved. I am now going to create art and become this artist. It has been very much a 10-year journey, you know, of stopping, starting, quitting, getting a full-time job, being made redundant from that full-time job, going back to music. Like, it's not been a straight line. But I think that's been important for my journey in order to write the songs that I needed to write. And I look back and I'm like, oh, maybe I should have done this in my 20s. And but actually, I wouldn't have been able to write the stuff that I'm writing now in my 20s, because I had no idea about psychology and about how trauma works. I didn't have any of those things. I wouldn't have been able to write the way that I write now back then. So actually, my time for being an artist is now. But saying that, I did go back to get a 9-to-5 job, got made redundant in April of this year, and thought, sod it, I'm just gonna do the artist thing, because if I don't do it now, when will I do it? And kind of dropped into part-time, setting up my private practice part-time, and found that this has really been my sweet spot, because I've been able to do some incredible things, and it's always been on my heart as well. I think the actress in me came back full time, this came back with a vengeance this time round, because I just finished filming my first music video a couple of weeks ago. I was able to play multiple characters, and that was like a gift to my inner child. And lots of people have said, oh, well, what are you going to do if the music video flops? I said, there's no way this music video can flop, because the purpose of the music video was for me. It wasn't for anyone else. I did this for me. This was my ode to my inner child, to say, you know, if no one's going to give you a platform, create your own platform. And that's something I really learned early on, especially in a lot of different industries that I've worked in. So I've worked in the wellbeing industry, I've worked in the music industry, is that as a South Asian who sings primarily in English, I don't really sing in many other languages. I sing mainly in English because my parents really wanted to assimilate. So they didn't speak Tamil to us growing up. They spoke English to us growing up. So I can do conversational Tamil. I'm not fluent in it by any means. So I would say my first language is actually English, which is a whole other identity crisis in and of itself, because growing up in the UK, I was always seen as a foreigner. I had those white vans drive past me and go back to your country, P word. Like, do you know what I mean? And I'm like, I'm not even from Pakistan, but okay, you know? And it's like, you have these experiences growing up in the UK. And then when I go and visit family in Sri Lanka, they're like, oh, the Westerners are here.
Yeah.
It's like, you go back to Sri Lanka and I'm a Westerner. I'm a foreigner in the UK. It's like this constant feeling of otherness. And I'm like, well, where do I belong? You know, and I realised that actually sometimes there isn't room for you. You have to create your own room. You have to create your own table. If there's no space at the table, create your own table. And I learned that really early on when we were pitching my own personal project to different A&Rs and different labels. It'd be the same feedback. Oh, this is a little bit too Asian for our audience. And I was just like, I'm singing in English. How is this too Asian? I'm like, you mean I'm too Asian for your audience? You know, there was a really funny one that I had to laugh to when I got the feedback, which was, our diversity quota is full for the year,
Brilliant.
was a response.
Brilliant.
So,
Oh my God.
you know, and I thought, why am I asking for permission to
Yeah.
be in an industry that was obviously not built for me? And I won this mentorship a couple of years ago, and I got to go to ADE, which is an event called Amsterdam Dance Event. It's one of the biggest like dance festivals in the world, really. But every year they do it in Amsterdam, and you get to go to masterclasses, and you get to network and go to events and all sorts of things. And I won a mentorship scheme there with an organisation called She Said So, which was about elevating female voices in the music industry. And while I was there, I got paired with a mentor. And initially I was like, oh God, they've paired me with like a straight white guy, basically.
Right.
Like, he's just going to tell me I'm too Asian, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, he completely blew me away. And it just goes to show my own like unconscious bias there, which I had to deconstruct after that meeting. And he listened to my story and he said to me, well, Suzanna, if they won't give you a foot in the door, he's like, you know your stuff is good. He's like, why don't you create your own label? And it never dawned on me. And I was like, how do I create my own label? And he gave me a bunch of contacts and people to contact. And that's how Spill the Tea Records was born. Because I thought, I'm tired of pitching myself to these people that don't get it, because this music's not made for them, you know. And I ended up reaching out to a couple of different distributors, told them the story. I said, look, here's the story. Here's where we're at. And one distributor came back to us and said, Suzanna, I really want to help support you. Love your story. Love what you're about. Love what you're trying to do. So we'll give you a distribution deal, and we'll give you a discount on the distribution deal. So typically, distribution deals can be like, they'll take 20%, anywhere between 10 to 20%. And they were really gracious, and they gave us like an 11% deal, which is unheard of for an unknown entity, right? Usually you have to be a pretty big deal in order for them to give you that level of discount. And they just believed in it. And I kind of took that as a sign from the universe. It's like, okay, let's go. Let's build this. I will learn as I go. I have no idea how to run a label, but I'm going to learn as we go. And it's been very much a steep learning curve for the last 3 years. But it taught me, like, if they won't make room for you, make room for yourself. Always pivot. The art of the pivot, right, is don't take no for an answer, just pivot. You know, and it really taught me to not see rejection as rejection, but to see it as redirection. So now when I get a no, I'm like, okay, it's not that. Let's look. Where else do I need to look? Where do I need to pivot to? And that kind of tenacity has kind of helped me to get to where I'm at. And I'm hoping it will keep taking me where I need to go. But yeah, and so all of this kind of came about from learning that actually you don't have, why do you have to stick to the systems that are built if those systems were never built for you?
I'm still like fascinated by it's not rejection, it's redirection. I'm thinking already a t-shirt, a poster, a song title. But it's such a cool way of saying that the experiences we take in life where it feels like we feel we're not good enough because of we interpret a situation as rejection, whether it's in a relationship or a business thing or an interview or a whatever. It's like, well, people I think quickly jump to, if you're just being a lot, philosophical. People go, it's not mistakes, it's opportunities or learning experiences. But sometimes these things do sting. They hurt. It's like, fuck. I wasn't good enough for this, like, and to even read these banal reasons, like diversity quota is full. What the fuck is that? I've ticked a box. Sorry, no more tick. What? Oh dear.
No more box ticking allowed.
That's it. I've only got the one box. Oh, fucking hell. But saying it's a redirection. It's like, okay, so that it's almost like you're inviting yourself to go, okay, so you went ahead with this opportunity. You've met this decision. That's not in your control, by the way. Now is your opportunity to go. I akin it to, like, those choose your own adventure books we used to have as kids. There would always be a bit on the page, right? If you want to do this option, go to this page. If you want this option, go to there. This is where you are. It's like either you go, okay, fuck it, I'm rejected, and that's it, and you make of that what you will. Or you're like, right, what's the next step I want to do on this thing, if I still want to do this thing?
Yeah.
So it's a natural way, I think, of us going, okay, if I still want this thing, which I do, that's the first question, I think, to go, okay, do you still want it? Or because you're meeting all of this? So I think it's a real practice to ask yourself, do I actually want this thing? And it's not enough. People then think, okay, are you just going down the road of like, want it enough and you'll get it? And people talk about manifestation, affirmation, people go into the whole, I don't know, that kind of thing. But I think it's what you were saying before. You make of this what you will. Yeah. Your individuality and all this kind of thing will look to your own. It doesn't have to be dictated to by what everybody else has been through or gone through or shown you. But I think, to me, the observations I've been seeing, it comes back to the same fundamental questions of what do you want, and being honest with yourself about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think as well, it's also about, well, if no one gives you the opportunity, making the opportunity for yourself. Like, we have the ability to create something out of nothing, right? Make something that didn't exist to exist. And I think that same creative power is the thing that opens opportunities for you. Sometimes no one's going to come along and give you an opportunity. You know, so something I say quite a lot to all my creative clients: stop waiting for permission. Who are you waiting for permission from? Like, give yourself permission and go. Like, you know, and I know it's a very simplistic way of looking at it, because you have to navigate certain emotional obstacles like imposter syndrome, like performance anxiety, like all of these things. But it's also about looking at the flip side of that. Like, one of the things that kind of keeps me going with things is like, do I want to be on my deathbed and be like, I'm so glad I played it safe and did nothing creative with my life because everybody else was happy but I was miserable? Like, that's not the story you want to tell. So for me, it's very much like, well, if I don't do it now, when will I do it? If not now, then when? Is a really good question to ask yourself. You know, and doesn't mean that you have to quit your job and just throw yourself into something, but it can be, well, what's one step I can take? So I didn't start where I am now. I started by writing a couple of songs for other people. You know, I started by writing a script that I was going to star in myself, right? That centered a South Asian character in this very British world, right? I thought, well, okay, what does it look like? Because, you know, back then there wasn't a lot of representation. What I'm really, really happy about is that, you know, as far as South Asian representation goes, we've made so many leaps and strides. Obviously, there's still room for improvement, but you are starting to see more and more South Asian faces on the TV, in movies, playing leads. You know, Simone Ashley is a classic example of playing the lead in Bridgerton. You know, it was very rare to see an Asian, and also very rare to see a darker skinned Asian playing main roles like that. So to see Simone Ashley in her full brown beauty was really inspiring. And I think that was part and parcel of, like, well, sometimes if you don't see the representation, you have to become the representation that you want to see. I think that's a really important part of the journey. Is like, sometimes you have to believe in yourself even when no one else does.
And that's the bit that I think strikes home a lot as well, because, as you said, typically when you have these opportunities that people ask themselves of, like, okay, whether it's being creative or doing whatever it is away from the safe route.
Yeah.
I think, you know, because of the, you know, people talk about our negative confirmation bias just kicks in of the brain of, like, you think the worst, the thing that will happen. As you said, performance anxiety, a waste of money, waste of time, an unproductive use of time.
Yeah.
And also, people jump to, what's the output that I'm going to get on this that's going to justify this, by way of more money or more recognition, like validation. Quick to jump to the result. Like, if I don't sell 1 million of these things, whatever it might be, then what's the point? And also the steps to get there. Like, as you said, imposter syndrome. Like, can I actually do this? because you're weighting yourself down into such a huge goal or outcome that you just fixate on and go, shit, I can't do that. But the more you think you get to practice this thing of like, okay, just the small steps that lead to the big goal will mean the big goal ends up being a natural byproduct of the small steps you take. So let's say you're selling something. Sell one unit of it, whether it's a piece of art you created, I don't know, a product or whatever. Sell one. Then see if you can sell two. What else can you make? What else can you talk about? What else can you market? And then you start to find your own answer solutions. Like you had the discussion with your mentor about make your own label.
Yeah.
Oh shit! I thought of that. And then by that you keep going. And it's interesting you mentioned about if you see a gap in representation, you can fill the gap yourself.
Yeah.
I think the more you practice that, the more actually you open yourself up to the grander possibility that filling that gap just becomes a natural byproduct of the work anyway, but also that you go beyond gap filling because you're just now being a human being.
Yeah.
And it's great to have the role models to go off on and inspire you and spur you on, and to go, hey, you know, if I can see a brown-skinned person being a lead in a typically Western production or role, like, okay, cool. And at the same time, these influences are all over the place, no matter who they're from, because you connect to these people as human beings.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I think as well, so there's a technique in CBT, right, cognitive behavioral therapy, called reframing.
Yes.
You know, so often we'll find ourselves asking the question, you know, why me? You know, but actually, if you reframe that, well, why not you? You know, because I think comparison can steal your joy when you're comparing yourself to whichever different artist it is, or whichever different, you know, center it is, or, you know, whatever your field of work is. And actually comparing yourself to other people is a completely thankless task, number one. But also, number two, in order for it to be a fair comparison, they have to have had the same life as you, had the same experiences as you, be on the same journey as you. And the reality is that no one is, right? So a better way to compare yourself, if you're going to compare yourself, is to compare yourself to a younger version of you, or a version of you from 2 years ago, or a version of you from 5 years ago. Because if I look at Suzanna from 5 years ago, my God, you're absolutely smashing it, girl, right? Well done. Look how far you've come. But if I compare myself to my peers who might have double the amount of followers or double the amount of streams, I'm always going to be lacking.
Yes, yeah. There'll always be someone better than your current measure.
Yeah, you know, and actually comparing them isn't a fair comparison, because most of my peers in the music industry don't have kids. So I'm trying to like navigate being a parent and keeping a roof over my kid's head and being a wife. And yet you've got some of these young ones that are living at home, no bills, no nothing, who have the time to dedicate. But actually comparing myself to them isn't going to be helpful to me. It's not going to be helpful to them. You know, so actually learning to find my own journey and being okay with being on my own journey and being okay with the fact that it's not looking like everyone else's, is the greatest gift that you can give to yourself. Which is, if you're going to compare, which, you know, in South Asian families we're hardwired to do that, right? From a young age, being compared to our cousins and our siblings or whatever.
Oh God,
you know, if you're going to compare yourself to who you were previously, because chances are you're growing and you've moved forward in your life and you're actually absolutely smashing it.
Yeah, that's such a great point, and probably something that a lot of us experience no matter what background, because we're always, the comparison thing is a real stealer of joy, the moment, and we're always comparing from a place of lack. I haven't got enough money, I haven't got a partner, I haven't got it's what haven't I got? And we jump to it because we've attached our self-worth to these things. Only when I get these things or this state am I going to be happy, content, good enough. But when we do that, we're always going to be, as you said, forever chasing. There's someone, it reminds me of a lyric, from Cast, the song Live the Dream. He said, someone will always be more than I'll ever be, so then I'll be myself.
Yeah.
Because that's all, everyone knows I'm a massive Oasis fan. My favourite song, Supersonic, starts with, I need to be myself, I can't be no one else.
Yeah.
And that is it.
Yeah.
And when we do face those programming experiences in our life that we've always got to be better than whomever, and you make it a game or a competition, or it's not good enough. Yeah. That's all come from an aspect of safety, of like, just be, it's wrapped up, I think, nowadays in the wrapper of be the best you can and stuff like that. Yeah. But underlying all that is still the whole always compare, always beat your rival or whatever it might be. And it creates that movement of like, well, if I'm not living up to those expectations or things like that, then I don't feel good enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we constantly try and meet that via validation and self-defeating behaviours, patterns that we just get stuck in. And it all starts, I think, we're just going, okay, but what do I want?
Yeah.
Because on a day-to-day level, we do things like, say, people-pleasing or judgment or things like that. We keep the peace, or we don't say what we actually want. When just by expressing that, we're like, okay, I've now given myself the space to say, what do I want? Knowing that I'll change my mind along the way, because human beings do that.
Yeah, and we're allowed to.
Exactly. Well, this is it. But it may feel that, ourselves included, a lot of us are stuck because it's like, I can't change because I've got this going on. And as you said, if not now, then when? And look, people may be listening to this going, yeah, but I've heard all this. I've heard the whole, if not now, when, and this kind of thing. And it comes back, I think, to a point we're making about, just ask yourself what this looks like for you. You don't have to make upheaval right now, today, because these things will take time. These things will still be up and down. There'll still be, mistakes along the way. But if you didn't ask yourself the question in the first place, how do you know?
Absolutely.
And it's not easy.
No.
It's not.
Absolutely. And I think sometimes, and I've been in that place where I've been like, oh yeah, well, I've heard this all before, and and you make excuses, right? I think so often, if I'm being brutally honest, I think that was coming from a place of deep disappointment and jealousy that someone else was doing the thing that I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And the thing about jealousy, and I think this comes back to reframing, right? The CBT reframing stuff I was talking about earlier. Jealousy is just the opposite end of the spectrum to awe and inspiration.
Yes. Yeah.
Right? So if you can shift and reframe that as, oh, well, if you can do it, then that must mean I can do it. You can shift from jealousy to inspiration. You can shift from not doing something to actually following your dreams and pursuing your passions. All you have to do is get out of your own way. And I think if we're being really honest with ourselves, sometimes we make excuses for things because sometimes it's easier to not have to confront the idea that you might fail by just not doing it. And we kind of get into this all or nothing mentality. Either I need to do it and I need to be the best of the best and have a million billion streams, right, for music, for example, or I'm just not going to do it at all. And I think the perfectionism that is so driven into us as salvation.
That's it.
Right?
That's
the need to be academically driven can sometimes stifle that and stifle or create a fear around making mistakes. Yet we all know that making mistakes is one of the most effective ways of learning.
And that we will make mistakes anyway. This whole
and it's
push for perfectionism doesn't exist.
Absolutely.
And anyone that, again feels like, well, I've heard this. It's like, well, ask yourself about it. When we're going for perfectionism, what's underneath that? In whatever aspect you're looking at it, what's underneath it? It's like, it's the understanding that being imperfect is not okay.
Yeah.
The truth is, we are all imperfect.
Yeah.
There isn't this idea of perfection that's sustainable. And coming back to jealousy, you make a really, really great point of like, the reframe is absolutely possible. And at the same time, hand in hand, is the idea that you can feel jealous. That's okay.
Yeah.
That's absolutely okay. Because some people may have heard that and go, jealous, I'm not jealous of them. But that's a very clever
Yeah.
way that our ego suppresses the idea that, well, actually, you might be jealous of him, you know. Outwardly, you're not. You're like, no, I ain't jealous of him. What have I got to be jealous about?
Yeah.
But ultimately, it's the unspoken thing of, as you said, they're expressing the freedom to do what they want, and you're suppressing that very same freedom that you have.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like, fuck, I'm doing so hard to carry on in my life, suppressing this behaviour that I've been shown by my experiences that that's not okay.
Yeah.
And yet here you are, wantingly doing what you want, and I'm bloody jealous of that.
Yeah. I think for me, part of the journey was learning not to compare myself and was to confront my own jealousy, right? So if I saw someone post something about some great achievement that they did, instead of getting jealous and scrolling past it, if it triggered me, because it's like, oh, I should be doing that, right? I would go on to their socials and I would post, that's amazing, congratulations. So I really wanted to be someone that could celebrate other people's success. Because if you can't celebrate other people's success, you'll never be able to celebrate your own. And vice versa. If you can't celebrate your own success, you'll never be able to celebrate other people. And the freedom that gave me, just acknowledging other people's success, I can't tell you, like, it was like night and day. And I just stopped feeling jealous of other people, and I stopped making excuses for why I wasn't doing something. And I thought, right, I can't necessarily do it their way, but I can do it my way. And I just found a way to find what my sweet spot was and find a way to make it work that works for me. And that's not to say what works for me will work for you, but I think it's about going on that journey to say, actually, I know deep down inside, I am a powerhouse of creativity. How can I express this, right? And one of the things that, you know, I learned through the psychotherapeutic journey is that the opposite of depression is expression.
Yeah.
So often the reason why we have this sense of stuckness or these kind of constant low moods that can then manifest as anxiety or, you know, a range of different things, you know, not sleeping, insomnia, autoimmune diseases, is so often we keep everything internalized. The moment you find your platform to express it, whatever that is, that might be writing, that might be drawing, that might be painting, that might be, you know, building things, it might be helping other people, creating a charity, whatever your outlet is, your form of expression, when you start to do that thing and you start to live in that way of being, there's a huge amount of freedom that comes, and you'll just find that you'll stop making excuses for why you're not doing something. Because instead of putting all the energy into making excuses, you start to put the energy into making things happen.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And it sounds cutthroat, right? And it's not as nuanced as that. Obviously, there's a lot of emotions to kind of regulate and manage in the midst of that. But you will find so much healing when you lean into authenticity. And you'll find so much healing when you lean into expression.
And that's something that is in all of us, but because life has come along, we're just programmed in thinking that this is it, and yet we're probably all living with that undercurrent of like, there's got to be more to it than this shit. This 9 to 5, this thing that we have to do to pay some arbitrary thing that we've got going on. And when I say arbitrary, I mean, like, you know, these things that we made are constructs of our own, right? Mortgages and bills and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And yes, they are important. I'm not saying right, sod all that as a action. We've repeated so many times so far that it is always an opportunity to ask yourself, what does a different path look like? And you don't have to have all the answers right now.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we can take the clues of, say, if we feel jealous about someone's situation, whatever it might be, ask yourself, what does that mean for you?
Yeah.
So, you know, jealous that they're expressing the freedom, jealous that they've got a partner and you haven't, jealous that they've got a date and you haven't, jealous that they've got whatever then that you haven't. Ask yourself, okay, do I actually want that?
Yeah.
Or is that my programming speaking? And also, what's underneath the jealousy? It's rarely the thing that you're jealous about. It's what it carries underneath it.
Yeah.
So as you said, in your example, it was, well, they're exhibiting the freedom.
Yeah.
And you'll find that actually is cropping up in more places than the thing that you're looking at.
Yeah, 100%. I'm a firm believer that any of the low vibrational emotions that we feel. So when I say low vibrational, I mean like anger, jealousy, sadness, anything that makes you feel heavy, makes you feel low. They are often signposts to unmet needs. So when
Yeah,
you are
yeah.
experiencing those motions, it's like a huge neon sign that's flashing at you going, unmet need,
Yes.
right?
Sirens going off, blaring,
Yeah,
everything,
yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. And I think when you're feeling those emotions, you can distract yourself from it using whichever vice of your choosing, or you can confront it and be like, oh, hold on a minute. If I get curious about why I feel the way that I do, what unmet need might this be signposting? And how do I meet that unmet need? How do I get that met? Because actually, if you can go on that journey, you'll start to realize you're actually unstoppable.
Do you have an example of that? Because that's a really powerful point.
Yeah, oh my God, so many. Okay, so I remember before I went back into music, you know, I would get so jealous of people that were putting music out and they were, you know, writing music, and I would be like, oh, I bet I could do that, but I would never externalize it. So I'd always be very polite and nice to everybody else, but inside it was like the shadow self was just like kicking off, being like, rah, right? And and it wasn't until I started my psychotherapeutic journey and I came to the awareness of so much anger that I was carrying because it had been suppressed over the years, right? And growing up as a South Asian female in the UK, rage was something that you were not allowed to experience, nor express, nor entertain, right? You are not allowed to be angry, right?
Yep.
Everyone else can be angry, but you are not allowed. And so,
Don't shit on your own doorstep, I call it.
yeah, absolutely. And so I would get really upset. And the way that that would manifest for me was I would eat to try and suppress my anger. And
Right.
so I put on so much weight over lockdown and in those years preceding that because I was internalizing everything. And because I wasn't externalized, I wasn't looking at what those unmet needs were. And so I was filling that unmet need with food. When I started to go on this healing journey, since then and now, I've actually lost 2.5 stone, like just going on this healing journey, just looking at what are your feelings actually signposting, Suzanna? What do you need to look at? What's a healthy way of getting those needs met? You know, and so much around it was I am a creative, but I've not given myself permission to be creative in whatever aspect that was. And the moment I started on that journey, I didn't need to go to food for that sense of comfort because I was actually doing the creative thing. The thing that I was trying to fill with this void with these other things, was now being filled by the thing that I wanted to do, that I wasn't reaching for those things. And it was hugely eye-opening because the food noise used to be really loud.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
I get upset, I want chocolate. I'm angry, I want chocolate. I'm sad, I want chocolate. Like it was almost like food had become my best friend. So anytime I was feeling any low vibrational emotions, that's who I'd go to. And that was my vice. Obviously, everyone has their own vices, but realizing that and actually giving myself permission to look at what I was feeling. So now I do practice, which I call emotional check-ins. So every morning after I've dropped the kids at school, I have some time before I start my private practice day, and I'll just sit and journal and I'll check in with myself. And I have something called the feelings wheel, which I share with all my clients. And basically, I'm like, okay, Suzanna, how are you feeling? And if it's anything that's kind of those low vibrational emotions, I'm like, okay, what unmet need might this be signposting? You know, sometimes it's tired. I didn't go to bed early enough. You know, so it's like actually I need to set some boundaries with work because I work till 1 o'clock in the morning when I should have been in bed at 10. Like, do you know what I mean? So it really helps me to self-assess and be like, where do I need to make some adjustments? Or it's like, oh, I haven't gone out for a walk today. I haven't moved my body. So, okay, let me go out for a walk now and get the endorphins going, you know. Or maybe it's I haven't eaten today. Or maybe it's like I haven't connected with my partner. We've been like ships in the night, just being co-parents, but not actually connecting. And so actually, let's go and carve out some time to let's go out for lunch together. Do you know, so looking at why I'm feeling a certain way and what I can do about that to change my situation was hugely, number one, empowering. Number two, it allowed me to look at that female rage and to explore that. which is what I loved about this music video, because I got to lean fully into female rage for this music video.
Yeah, let's talk. Let's share. Let's like share more about this, because like it looks fantastic from what I've seen.
Thank you.
All
Appreciate
the detail that's gone into it, the creative story, the visuals.
Yeah.
Tell us more.
So when I was writing Identity Crisis album, one of the songs that came out of that was a song called Bone Collector.
Right.
And Bone Collector is essentially, growing up, my experience as a brown female was that I was held to a different standard to many of my peers, specifically other women, but other white women in particular. They were allowed to behave in a certain way that if I behaved that way, I would be condemned and ridiculed and villainized. And yet they behave that way and no one bats an eyelid. It's just like normalized, right? So something called white tears. And so it was very nuanced, because I was trying to navigate this kind of racism and this kind of white supremacy and the constructs of like all of these things. But it also, it was kind of exploring this thing of like, when people feel like they can point the finger at you, but they're not looking at the three fingers pointing back at them, right? It's like when people can just point out all of your flaws, right? And growing up, I was taught never to challenge that. So even if I wasn't wrong, I was taught I should apologize. So I would take responsibility for things that I hadn't actually done wrong. But my coping mechanism, right, and my stress response was hardwired to fall into the fawn or freeze category. So either I would just shut down and be like, I don't know what to say, so I'll say nothing. Yeah. Or I would fawn and become this people pleaser. I was like, let me make life better for you, even if I'm betraying myself. Like,
yep.
And so when I was doing some of this deep research and looking at that real internalized identity piece, this was one of the things that I wanted to explore. And so I kind of crafted this character talking about, you know, just me trying to like live my life, but feeling like the fingers were constantly being pointed at me, even when I wasn't doing anything wrong, because of other people's unconscious bias towards me, because of systems of oppression that were not built for me. And when you're trapped in it, you start to think that you're the problem. And I really wanted to write about that experience. So we wrote about the experience, and we'd finished the original version, which was just talking about the other person. And I was just like, it's not finished. It needs an alternative chorus, which is really empowering.
Right.
Because in that situation, you feel like so much of your power is taken away from you. Your voice is silenced. You know, people turn against you because they believe someone's word over yours, even if they have no facts, no receipts. Just because that person is white, they're believed, even if they're lying, just because of the color of their skin. And so my journey was like, no, it can't finish just telling that piece of the story. The next piece of the story is, well, what if you lean into that revenge and that rage? What if you pay no mind to the people pleasing, and you pay no mind to what other people think of you, and you just lean into what you know is true? And one of the things I learned from a really young age, growing up in the UK as a person of colour, is you've got to keep your receipts. I have everything in writing. I keep all of my receipts. You know, I keep all my text messages. I just archive them, you know, because unfortunately, my experience growing up as a person of colour in the UK is that you are guilty until proven innocent. Right? And that's just the reality. And it's not just my experience. I know that so many people of colour have experienced that, because of unconscious bias, because of systemic racism, you name it. And so I wanted to finish the story being like, well, what if you leaned into that female rage and you just let loose, and you kind of created this alternative chorus at the end, where it's like, you know, so the beginning bit's talking about, oh, she's a bone collector, but actually there's a bridge, and then it turns 180, where it's like, actually, didn't you realize I'm the bone collector? Because I've been keeping score and my receipts in check. You know, and it's this real, and it turns out into this real song of empowerment. And then obviously, because it's called Bone Collector, I was like, oh, it could be really cool to like have it like skeleton vibes.
Yeah.
And then what if we released it in Halloween, so it kind of had that kind of dark gothic Halloweeny vibes? And so the Bone Collector music video was born. I came up with a concept. It's kind of always been brewing in the background. So when we wrote it last year, I was like, oh, this would be a really cool song to do a music video to. And then it wasn't until I got made redundant in April of this year that's like, sod it, I'm just going to make it happen. I don't know how we're going to do it. I don't know how we're going to fund it, but we just got to make it happen. And so basically I started saving, and I started asking people in my local community and sharing the idea. The concept was like, right, I've got this concept. It's kind of murder mystery meets Cluedo, set in like this manor house. How can we make this happen? And so many people were like, we love the vision. Let's just make it happen. Let's just come on board. So many people gave their time for free to make this music video happen. So many people massively discounted their rates. So the DOP and his team and the unit stills photographer massively discounted their rates. It was the only way that I could afford it. But they really just believed in the vision and came on board to make it happen. And then we were like, right, we need a venue. So we end up just kind of Googling like manor houses in Northamptonshire.
So many wedding venues must have come up.
Yeah. And then there's this one place called Moulton Grange. And I was like, oh, this could look really cool. So I messaged them on, and it was on Airbnb. So I messaged them on Airbnb, and the owner, a lady called Rosie, messaged me back. So she's like, yeah, come along, come and have a look and see if it will fit for you. So I went to this place, and as we drive up, I kid you not, and this is how I know there's like it was a little nod from the universe. These 2 yellow butterflies come and start circling around us. And whenever something significant happens in my life, I will see these yellow butterflies just appear out of nowhere.
Right.
Every it's like the universe's little sign to me is like, you're on the right track, keep going, right? And it happens every single time. I'm like, is this the right thing to do? Yellow butterflies just show up. I remember being in an airport in America once, and I was wondering whether I should go to Nashville or go to LA. And I booked the flight to Nashville, and I was really second guessing that decision. And suddenly, out of nowhere, this yellow butterfly starts circling the plane in the middle of an airport. I was just like, okay, we're good, let's go. We're going to Nashville, right? And it was like, these key moments in my life, these yellow butterflies have showed up. So anyway, we rock up to this Moulton Grange, yellow butterflies show up, and I was like, ooh, okay, that's a good sign. Lady opens the door, and it's a beautiful Asian lady, and I'm like, auntie, like, it was, and we ended up chatting with her, and she was the most beautiful soul. She really just caught the vision, and she's like, I just want to support you. I love your energy. She's like, you just tell me what your budget is, and we'll make it happen. And so she massively discounted the venue. It's the most incredible, beautiful, amazing venue that you've ever seen. Like the videos don't, the pictures don't even do it justice, because it's incredible. But basically, the community rallied. People gave their time and their creative efforts for free or for like massively discounted rates, and we were able to pull it off. And if you look at how much it would have actually cost us. It would have actually cost us about 50 to 60k to make what we made. I also ended up making all the costumes myself. So I went to the charity shops, bought costumes from charity shops, and then basically turned them into different costumes with paint and spray bottles and stitching on different pieces of materials and getting customized buttons and stuff like that. And rhinestoning my outfit complete. I learned how to rhinestone. And yeah, making all of the outfits myself. A lot of the props we made ourselves as well. Went to loads of charity shops. All of it is basically all the props we found at charity shops. And yeah, so we were able to make something that should have cost us 50 to 60k, and it came in, I did the maths yesterday, just under 9k.
Wow.
So I used all of my savings. And then Tesco's, I like to say Tesco's sponsored it, but it was my Tesco's credit card that sponsored it. And so I just thought, okay, I've got into a little bit of debt. I don't advise everyone to get into debt. But I know I've got the means to now be paying that off using my private practice money. But I just thought, if I don't do it now, when will I do it? I didn't have all the money up front, and some people have allowed me to delay payments to them. But we'd made something, and it was the most life-giving experience I've ever experienced. It allowed me to explore parts of myself that had been lying dormant for years, for decades. And it was so healing to have other people be part of this project and be excited to be there. Because it really, for me, it solidified, oh yes, Suzanna, you're an artist. I may not be a damn
good one as well.
Thank you. I may not be the world's greatest singer. I'm no Mariah Carey, but I am the best version of me, right? I am the best saffron you're ever going to come across. And And there was something really healing about leaning into that and being like, okay, sometimes the path to what success looks like isn't linear. You know, sometimes
Exactly.
we hold ourselves back because we're waiting for resources, but we never seek to ask people if they'll buy into it, you know. And there's this really great passage in the Bible, right, that says, write the vision and make it plain, that all that see it may run with it, right? And I think there's something really powerful about when you write your vision down and you share it with other people. There might be people that poo-poo it and be like, yeah, you're mad, right? But there'll also be people that be like, yeah, that resonates, I'm going to come on board. So don't be afraid to ask for help. And that's what I did. It taught me how to ask for help. And then collectively, like, this music video wasn't just made by me. This was an absolute team effort. But it just goes to show the power of community in making dreams happen. And I said to every single one of them, if there's ever anything I can do for you, just ask, please. I want to be able to give back to them as well.
That's such a cool story, and
So,
cannot wait to see the final product.
it was so fun. You're gonna enjoy it so much.
Well, just from hearing about it, and as I've you know, on social media, that, you know, we'll share in a second. It just looks great. It looks like a real passion project, as you call it.
Yeah.
And you know, it really is an example, as you said, like, you know, hey, this could end up making, well, however it makes money, you know, but it helps you promote your own music or someone uses it, whatever it might be. Point is, you've made, as you said at the beginning, you made it for you.
Yeah.
You had this vision and idea for a long time, and you've made it come to life, and that's the real joy of it. If other people bought into it, then you almost seen it as a bonus that they came along in the journey too.
Yeah.
And at the same time, you did it for you.
Absolutely. And I also don't mind if people don't like it, because I did it
exactly
for them.
Yeah, exactly.
I like it. I made it for me, and that's all that matters, really.
Well, and that's, you know, we were talking before about, you know, people thinking about imposter syndrome and is this good enough, and perfectionism and this kind of thing. But part of another reason why we get stuck is, you know, the lack of validation we might get from this output. If no one like bought it or watched it, what's the point? Or you end up doing it and you have that sinking feeling like, fuck, no one bought or watched or whatever. But that's an example of us tying expectations and our self-worth into the outcome. When it's like, do you know what, it doesn't matter whether one person watched it or loads of thousands of people watched it, millions of people. It's like, as you said, you're doing it for you, and the natural byproduct and outcome of the work is the production you made, right? However much you look into signs and things like that, it's like, well, you know, you put an idea out there, people came on board, you here's the thing, you found yourself making the right steps for you automatically, because your subconscious bought into what you're doing, because you gave yourself the space to go, no, I'm doing this for me. This isn't like, right, I've spent $9,000, I've got to get this back and make the money out of it. It's like, no, look, there's a sense of like, okay, we don't want to throw everything money wise we have into it because we can't afford it, can't do this, whatever. But at the same time, as you said, it could have been 50, 60 grand. I did it for 9. And there's opportunities that we do that in real life anyway, but then we don't doing the things we actually enjoy. Like, you know, people when they're renovating their houses now, costs of everything have gone through the absolute roof. But it's like people find ways to go, okay, I can do this for a better price. When you have a project like that where you can see the outcome in bricks and mortar or whatever, then you're like, okay, I can do this, I can do that. So you employ that kind of saving mentality. But when it's like, okay, I want to create my own project or creativity, you're like, but there's possibilities, as you said. Charity shops are there. Your own. You will find the ways. You
absolutely, absolutely. And I think I had a particular look in mind, so I definitely spent more than I needed to. I probably could have made it for 5, but it wouldn't have looked the same, you know. So
exactly,
it's about, well, how willing are you? You know, how willing are you to put investment in yourself? Because ultimately that's what it was. I was like, if no one's going to invest in me, I've got to show them that I'm investable. you know, because sometimes, unfortunately, in this world, you do have to prove yourself before people give you opportunities.
Yeah.
And so part of it is actually I needed to prove it to myself, but also
That's it.
part of me wanted to prove it to other people that naysayed me. So nothing like revenge and to fuel creativity.
It all counts together, as you say.
Yeah.
Sometimes we feel we've only got to do it for this one reason, to get back at people, to prove this kind of thing. But the more we practice this thing, the more we get into the pattern of what do I want?
Yeah.
And people mistake that for what everybody else wants, needs, etc. No, we're saying, is there space enough for you as well?
Yeah.
Instead of just cycling through the same patterns, behaviours, and we wonder why we get stuck, when there are things that light us up, that we enjoy, that we can spend more time and energy on, that is there. So it's all possibilities.
Absolutely.
We've hit over an hour, and I always have so much fun on this show that time just runs away. We will definitely have you back on, Suzanna, because there's so much more that we could chat about.
Love to come back on.
In life, in music, in all sorts. It's been such a fun show. Before we go, do you want to just point people in the direction of where they can reach out to you, find more stuff about you, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so you can reach out to me via my website, which is www.suzannastorey.com. So it's Storey with an E. So I'll spell it out. It's SUZANNASTOREY. So
and we'll put this on descriptions and stuff. So
okay, perfect. And then all my music stuff is at Saffron Music on all my socials. So that's Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube. So yeah, on all the socials is at Saffron Music. So yeah, give us a follow, and definitely once the video comes out, please comment on the video, especially on YouTube, and just let me know what you think.
Yeah, these blessed algorithms and stuff like that. But
absolutely.
And when does Bone Collector come out?
So Bone Collector comes out on the 17th of October. But if you can't wait to see some of the snippets, I am dropping teasers on my socials. So check out my socials if you want to watch a little teaser.
Awesome stuff. Suzanna, thank you so much for your time.
It's
been a really enjoyable conversation. As I said, we'll definitely have you back on. And guys, for those watching and listening, thank you for tuning in. If you want to be on the show, just reach out to me at Inner Peace Walker or wherever you see this show, and look, we'll chat and get you on the show and have a great conversation like we just did with Suzanna. So Suzanna, thank you so much again for joining, and we'll catch you on the next one. Feel Supersonic.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for checking out this episode of Soundtrack of Your Life. I hope you enjoyed it. Please do like and share this episode around. Subscribe to the channel for further shows coming up. Comment with your thoughts below and use the sign up link to get yourself on the show as well. I'd love to have you on. Feel Supersonic.